Good morning, everyone. My name is Mark Knowles, and I'm with the Gov Directions, and we're here this morning on a special Saturday session to talk about the RFP process. We're live on YouTube as well, so you can watch us in either location. And as we go along, if you have any questions, you can unmute yourself, but during the class, go ahead and mute yourself. That helps with the background noise, and since we're on so many channels here. And I'll continue to let individuals in the room, and we'll get our PowerPoint here ready to go. Just hopefully you all have your coffee and you got it. And here's mine is a UGA coffee. It's for back-to-back national championships. Okay, so that always gets me in a good mood when I use this coffee cup. And here I am. I'm actually in my home, getting ready to go for a 10-mile walk after this is finished. My wife's got me up earlier here. We're located in Atlanta, and it's about, I think, 30 degrees. So it's a little cold. And so that's my plan for today. But it is nice and sunny, and it's going to be really a great day. And so here we are, though, to spend about 30 minutes with each other. This will be recorded on YouTube, so you can actually go there and watch it almost, I believe it's immediate. It's all this technology, so sometimes it escapes me. 1 second here while I open up my screen. I'm a big believer in experiential learning, so we're going to bounce around in a couple of places today on the internet. Please excuse me if I show you anything private. I try not to do that on my screen, but occasionally it can happen. But I'm looking at an RFP right now. And so this is one of my favorite sessions that I like to do, and I like to talk to members about the request for proposal and help them understand it. Okay, there's other classes that we do. Excuse my coffee machine in the background if you hear that, but I think my wife's getting a cup of coffee too. We usually have coffee on Saturdays mornings, but the RFP itself is a way for the government to engage with you as a contractor. And it's a way to kind of set up the ground rules and how other companies are going to compete against each other in the process. And so it's important that you learn how to read them. We're having a specific class, as I was leading toward earlier, to help you write responses. That's a completely different process, I think. And so, one of the first classes I decided to teach when we opened up this platform of GovSchool is how to read the RFP first. Come to understand what you're looking for, why it's important that you pick up on particular parts of it. Look for key indicators of success that you when going into it. I think that's always important, so you're not wasting your time on opportunity that really doesn't match up to your capabilities. And you're going to find that happens a lot. Every day there's about 50,000 active RFPs on the street on average. Right now, I think this morning we have about 42,000. The low period of the year around 30,000, the high period around 70,000 active ones. And that's always driven really by the budget cycles of government and how they actually go out and procure. And so different times of the year increases when they're engaging with you. Everybody typically works on an annualized basis of some sort, whether or not the year starts with January or July or October, it's still on an annual basis, and they're spending their money on an annual basis. Some areas have biannual or multi-year plans in place, and they'll do that over time. But the majority of governments are operating on a 1 year basis, and that's because we like to manage our money locally, and the city councils and county commissions and so forth, they all change, and so you don't want to bind one of them over time. They don't like to do that. It's just not typically not a good practice. And so they used contracting instruments to govern the way they go out and procure services and supplies. And there's different forms of those. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. It's just one of those, the one that's sort of the most of us respond to. But it's also typically the more complicated one to really understand. Sometimes they're really straightforward. I actually teach a class in a graduate school program at this here university, and then I've done how to actually write the RFP. These are to individuals who will be future leaders in public administration. And so I've reversed it. This is sort of reverse engineering to help you understand what I'm telling them to do in that process. I've been in this sector for some 34 years. It's supposed to stop after 25 years, I think. And when you tell your expertise, but I've been around and I've seen and I've done, and I've actually been on both sides. And I've actually won just over 350 contracts. I'm at a point in my life where I'm somewhat specialized in what I pursue. I've worked in 34 states, so I've seen different methods that are there. And so today, what I'm going to do is share with you some experiences. So GovSchool, I founded a while back, and so we learned early on when we initially founded GovDirections in 2006. We've been in this market since 1998. We actually started a company and then sold it to a company that's on the Toronto Stock Exchange. So we've got some experience developing too. But then we had to set up a while. I came back in 2006 in order to give you a more 360 view of how this marketplace really does work. And because it's not just finding the bids, it's also winning and learning how to win and using technical expertise of others to get you to that next step. And so GovDirections builds around that entire process. GovSchool is a part of that. Here, my primary focus is to help you learn to win. Okay, that's all we do. Every class we have is built around helping the small business owner, entrepreneur who's somewhat new to the market, although we have more advanced classes for those who are expanding. But they're really to get you to that first win. And so to know that, because it's supposed to be hard. I use this slide in every presentation I do, because if it were easy, everyone would do it. The reason why you're up here on a Saturday morning at 9 a.m. In Atlanta time, maybe it's even earlier if you're on the West Coast. Thank you for coming so early. I do respect that time, but I do have to get out today and go for that long walk. So I want to do this early. And I'm going to start doing some of these on Sunday afternoon too, kind of help some others, based on suggestions, because you really want to win and you're doing what's necessary in order to get to that point. Because those other folks who are sleeping in this morning, they think it's easy, but it's not. And so you gotta have some background. And I know from experience that if you come to these classes, you're going to win more. I hear from our customers, you don't get as frustrated. I actually responded to somebody last night. I think it was about 7 o'clock. I was cooking some steaks and the email came through and they were talking about how frustrated they were. And I went ahead and just answered it, because it's off hours, but I was grilling. I had some time. So I said, don't get frustrated. It's hard. And so you gotta take these steps. It's not easy. And because if it were easy, then instead of only seeing 3 or 4 responses to an RFP, you'd see 50 to 100, and you just don't see it because the government process is a very structured process, and you gotta follow the rules. And I'm gonna teach you some of those rules today, and some things to really watch out for. But there's a reason why governments have a time getting companies to respond. You're going to find that you don't have as much competition as you really think you do. It's because no one takes that next step. No one, they read the RFP, they walk away because it looks too hard. Okay? But it's supposed to be hard to understand that. And I want you to know that also it's just not just sitting in this class. If you have time, take our 8 weeks of training. There's a process, and I walk through this in 8 weeks. My first class is on week 7 this year. For 2023, but the second class just started and it's on week 2. And you can wait until the next one gets started and do the entire 8 weeks. In this class, what we really do talk about is really how to get started in the sector. And then I talk specifically about capabilities. I'm going to brush on that this morning. Marketplaces as a whole, knowing and understanding really where you're serving. It's a $6 trillion marketplace. And so you target that in the appropriate way. There's a place for you. If you're a business owner, there's a place for you in the government sector, and you should have it as part of your business plan. It can't be the only part of your business plan, but it should be a part. Performance research and why you need to do it, and understand, how you perform comparatively speaking to your competitors. Pinpointing, I can't stress that enough. I'm going to show you those tools today. Pinpointing it just saves so much time. You don't need to be going after projects you have no possible way to win. Okay, and there is some impossibilities in this sector, and I kind of know that. I learned that the hard way. There's also a lot of possibilities, and you got to know how to find those and know the ones that match to you. And I'm gonna give you some basic tutorial on that today, and then how to respond, how to actually write the response. That's important. We have a special class just on that as well. Miss Tammy Bailey Fultz teaches. She's one of the best technical writers that I know. And she can give you she gives you guidance in that class, or she can actually help you in writing response. And then licking wounds, I use that term because we all fail. In order to win 350 plus, I've had to bid on 3,000 plus, I think. I said the other day 1,000, but I started thinking about it's over 3,000. And so your win ratio is there, but you gotta really fail a lot and in order to get there. And you gotta know how not to, pat yourself on the back and keep pushing and pushing and pushing. In order to continue. And then not only that, you don't always have to change things. Because just because you don't win something, it's a lot of times it's not your fault. It's other reasons. There's a Professor Coast who talks about in a theory of the firm and how we make decisions, and he quips, very quickly in a lighthearted way. People are generally stupid, and so they make decisions that aren't logical. And so we have to understand that going in, that it's not always what it should be happening. It's what actually happens. Okay, and so be aware of that and know that. And then and winning itself, and know that's what you're here for, and understand. When you do win, you got to fulfill and comply and all the parts that go along with that. So this 8 weeks, this really gets you started. It's free to any member at any level that's at a paid level. And so if you currently you want just completely free services for us, over 70% of our information is completely free. Then you can come in and you can actually pay for this particular. This is almost like a graduate school class on its own, but I do walk you through that. But today's purpose, to get back, is to help you identify the structure of a request for proposal. And I'm going to walk you through each section and explain the importance of those sections. I'm actually going to use an actual RFP as an example to identify them. Okay, experiential learning. And I want you, if you have in the background, you can go ahead and open up your RFP delivery account. We've always been on Gov Directions, but we gradually have moved. We're moving everybody over to the more pinpointed, geo-based, very powerful tool to help you really drill down into your neighborhood now. It's exclusive. No other service has that. It's a big differentiator for us. And so we not only help you pinpoint, but we show you exactly where it's at. And that allows you to know when something's really in your backyard and you have opportunities for that. A contracted instrument itself, and you've heard me use that term, it's a process for a government. It's really how they structure, how they engage with you. And there's some specific types out there that we all use. And now while we would like governments to, be very detailed and use the right
language. I can fucking hear, but I can't fucking see.
Pardon me? If you have a question, let me know. Anybody have a question? Okay.
No, not
We'll
yet.
maintain the mute status unless you have a question. Okay. The else in the background. So I'm putting on the mute. I'm not trying to be rude, but let me know if you have a question. You can actually type in the chat box as well. If you can't hear me, let me know. Anybody? Everybody can hear me? Okay, good. Okay, so here are the types that you should be watching out for. The first is the request for information. Okay, this is basically a source of salt, a description there. You see that the third one there. But here the government itself is saying to the marketplace, we're looking for to see if there's a competitive marketplace so we can acquire the service or supply that we need to. Sometimes they understand exactly what they need. Other times they really don't. And then they need experts at the table to help them. More of an agile environment where they're learning from you, because governance itself and the way that you operate, everybody can't be an expert. That's why you're in your field. And so they use the request for information and the source of salt to determine that. It's also used whenever there's a disaster of some sort, when a hurricane comes through, or a tornado comes through, or the fires out west, or the rainstorms, all kinds of different reasons. Even the train incidents, I believe that's in Ohio, where they step up and say, hey, marketplace, we've got this problem. We've got this urgent problem. Now we need to know what kind of supplies and services you can help us with. And here's generally what we need. So it's a very open call. You should not ignore those. Those can come in and very quickly end up into be a contractual situation without even going out and doing that. And once again, maintain your mute status as you come in, and that helps us with the background noise. Okay. And I'm going to continue to place folks on mute as we do that. It's not being rude, but just making sure. Also, request for qualifications. Here, when the government basically says, okay, we've got this project or supply that we need, and we want to know who's qualified to actually provide it. Okay, and so that's there for you to respond. This is sometimes even encouraged by a particular industry. Say, for example, as electrical engineers, you got to have a certification for that, and they don't want others who are potentially not qualified to bid against them. Okay, so they'll encourage the government to ask for qualifications, and then only those who have the qualifications are allowed to bid. Other times they may go in and say at the beginning of the year, wait, listen, we're going to pursue this over the year, and we want to know everybody who is able to provide us office copy paper. Okay, and everybody who is, what's your price? And then we're going to put you on a pre-approved list and say you're qualified, and then anybody within our organization that can then go up there and potentially procure that. You see this in plumbing. I might need a plumber during the year. I might need a carpenter or a roofer during the year, and this is how we do that. So once again, don't ignore those. It may not be an actual contract then, but it could be a contract through the year. Okay. The invitation to quote is oftentimes very informal. And they basically go out and they say, we got this problem right now. We got a leaky roof. I need somebody to come in and help us. Give me your quote. Or maybe I got pest control. I want to need pest control. I got a pest problem. I got 1,000 square feet. What's your price? And then they just call you up, or they just put it out there and have a 3-day response or something informal. You send in a quote, very simple, nothing difficult. A more formalized, quick response is the invitation to bid or request for bid. Here, once again, knowing exactly what they want, they've got the specifications in place. They really just need to know what your price is. Most times, those last two are driven by price. The first three, they're typically driven by your qualifications and experience. Okay, and then what you're able to provide and what you have inventory, things of that nature. We use the RFI, for example, a lot during the initial stages of the COVID crisis because there's people who needed supplies and there was an inventory there because we operate really on an on-demand economy. It's been in place for the last decades. And so we've rethought that, as we're going through this. And then finally, the request for proposal. The RFP is typically a document where the government knows they know what they're looking to accomplish and to achieve. And sometimes they know how to go about doing that. Other times they don't. But they are looking for the marketplace to give them their subject matter response, expert response back to their request. And they're going to give you some common formats to do that and to allow you to compete against each other. But it's a lot more open-ended in the response itself. It's still structured and because they want to have a apple-to-apple comparison as best as possible, but you'll know that they often do not. Okay. So what is an RFP? It really is the first thing that you should know is it is a solicitation. Okay, they're seeking your response. One of the questions I always get constantly is, Mark, isn't this already a done deal? Aren't these government decisions already made? No. Okay, if a government has enough tools in its disposal to not go into the marketplace if they want to, there's nothing that prohibits them. They have the ability to do that. They issue justification letters. They issue sole sources. This is something routine. So when you do see an RFP or an invitation to bid or there's other instruments, that's because they want a competitive marketplace. They want you to respond. They may lift the information from other RFPs, or maybe even a vendor has given them a basic format to use. You should have your sample one for your company written that meets you. Okay, some tools, some pointers I'm going to give you. Coming into a room like this, you should be putting your first and your last name and your company name. Okay, make sure you're marketing yourself in the right way. Okay, having a prepared RFP is one of those marketing techniques to get you at the top of the pile. Okay, it's also often made through a bidding process. Sometimes it's negotiated. Okay, but it's still a bidding process. It's not always based on a compensation bidding. Sometimes that's typically a part of it, but it's also you're bidding against others for your qualifications. You're bidding against others on your experience level. You're bidding against others on your methodology. Okay, so it's not just money; it's also other factors. In fact, an RFP, unlike the invitation to bid, the RFP itself, typically the cost process is very minimal part of the evaluation. And governments go through an elaborate decision-making process. They usually tell you how they're going to make a decision. It's usually in an organized way, but there is no real tool of decision-making. It's not always logical. And the way I score something and you score something can be completely different. But on average, if you have 5 or 6 people sitting together, it tends to work. And so I always tell folks too, when you have a response that you've written up, get 5 or 6 of your friends to evaluate it for you and use the matrix that the government uses, and you'll find that they're going to give you a similar score. It's also done, this process, the solicitation, it's done through a bidding process. It's done by an agency, somebody who's making the decision. Okay, agency is a term, or in the theory of the firm, we create organizations and then we put people in place to help them and manage that organization. And in that company, there's typically multiple individuals at the table helping you make a decision, but there's usually somebody who's there leading it through the process. Okay, and that's your procurement officer, and he's the individual that you're going to go in and you're going to make sure you satisfy that individual first, because you don't get past the gatekeeper, you can't go into the park. Okay, so just know that. And what you got to do is you got to make sure that you dot the I's and cross the T's, because that individual is typically not evaluating the actual proposal or the cost. They're evaluating your ability to follow the instructions. So the first thing I tell you, in this sector, unlike in the private sector where you and I can come to an agreement and got here together at 9:00 a.m. on Saturday morning, we just decided to do it on the spur and get all these individuals in here. That's perfectly fine. Okay. But in government, it's usually a little bit more structured. Okay. And so when you do that, follow instructions. Do not be creative. Okay. Be aware of that. Okay. Never be creative when dealing with government until you get in the door. When you get into the part, then you get past the gate, you can do that and you can really shine at that point. Okay. It's also an invitation to do something. They want to purchase a commodity, a service, an asset, and you're going to have competition, other potential suppliers who are going to submit a proposal. So these are all parts of the definition and all part of the process. So you should understand that each, it all has to work together in the RFP, okay? And governments use that. The typical parts of a request for proposal, these are the things you should see, not all the ways in this logical order, but it's typically there, okay? And so you got to look for that. The first thing you're going to look for really is the statement of work. SOW. The statement of work, it should be a paragraph or two, at the most 3 or 4 sentences. It should be clear and it should speak to you. Okay. ABCs of technical writing: accuracy, brevity, clarity. Okay. Remember those. In your private sector, it's always be closing. Okay. But here it's accuracy, brevity, clarity. That statement of work should be accurate. It should say exactly what you need, brief and clear to you. It should speak to you as a couple. When you read it, and I'm gonna give you a quote, I'll go ahead and give it to you. You're the one that I wanted to find. Coldplay. Okay, that song should start singing in your head, and it should be the one that you wanted to find when you read that statement of work. If it isn't, don't even worry about the rest of it. Just move on and get the next one. Okay, because if it doesn't speak to you right away, it's a waste of your time. And that's the first step of pinpointing. Okay, and when you read that, it should marry. You want to go marry it. Okay. The technical specs here are common typically with industry. Now you're going to see here, sometimes at this point, it won't be part of everything that you want to see, but a good portion of that is, okay? So don't walk away from something because it's, 20% of this I can't do. There's going to be a threshold that you want to watch for, but you could be the technical specs that the government gives you. Everybody else may have the same issue as you. And so when you bid, they may clean that up a little bit, but it's going to be there. And it should be common in your industry. You should be looking for using this as part of your indicators of success. These are indicators that I watch for. I have about 10 to 15 of them. Whenever I see an RFP, if I have a high degree of match, then I'm going to pursue that because that's an indication that I'm going to be successful. If I've got a low degree of match, then I'm not going to mess with it because I don't want to waste my time. Okay, because I'm not going to be successful, and I'm going to know that over time. Only you know what those are. The schedule. The schedule is important because this is a financial measure. And it's not only the schedule of completion of the RFP, but it's the schedule of completion of the requirements of the service or the supply that they're asking for. So there's 2 parts to the schedule itself. And the first thing you need to do is make sure you got enough time. And I've got another quote I always use too, because time is a factor. If work always expands so as to fill the time available for its completion. This is Parkinson's law. It's an old adage, of course, but it's true. And so if you've got 3 days, you usually can respond if you're ready to go. Okay. You got everything in your RFP template using a Google Drive. I just set somebody up this morning with a Google Drive when I first got up, and it's a personal client of mine. I do have some personal clients I work with. And they've got the Google Drive ready to go. It's going to have their W-9 in it. It's going to have their capability statement. It's going to have all the details they're going to need. And then just going to clip and paste it into their RFP response and get that going. They're even going to have a sample RFP, an RFP template ready to go. And so they literally could see it in the morning and bid on the afternoon with this ready. But sometimes you have 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month. Take the time. Okay. Don't rush it. Because there could be changes in a long period of time. That's typically why they give you 30, 45 days. They know they're going to have to go in and make some changes. And so know that schedule well. And also make sure you can meet the expectations of the deliverable and the technical specs in their own schedule. If you can't do that, don't respond to it. You don't want to get a bad reputation. They're not going to change for you. Okay. Understand that. And if a government doesn't give you a schedule, then you need to give them one too, at a caller. Say, you can make this decision and hire me, but you got to make it within 90 days or within a year, whatever that is, because pricing schedule or pricing could change, things like that. Okay. They also will give you a list of deliverables and when they want it delivered. This typically is tied to the payment process. We all want to get paid. My mother was always told me, never be afraid to ask for money. Okay. You deserve it. Step into it, ask for it. And that's how the deliverables work. when I deliver, first of all, when I deliver you the contract, I expect something. Whenever I actually deliver the product, I expect more. And when you actually accept everything and we close it, then I expect something. And so you kind of tie that to that process, and they'll give you those list of deliverables. And the deliverables, once again, don't just walk away from it because you might be missing one or two. Okay, just know that going into it, that those are sometimes negotiable when you get past the gatekeeper. Contract terms and conditions. This is your profit center. Is make sure you can understand the contract. The government's not going to change the contract. Read it. Make sure they're not going to change one thing, not one iota. Okay, and so don't expect them to. And if they don't give you a contract, then take the opportunity to give them one when you respond back to them. Always just slap that in if it's not there. They're not going to accept my contract. The city attorney is going to send one back to the county attorney or the state attorney, and I'm going to have to sign it. So just know that in those conditions. The format of the proposal, this is extremely important. They're going to tell you how they want their response. You need to follow the instructions. And they're going to, if they say 10 double-sided paper, no more, you better be sending them back 10 double-sided paper. If they want you to sign every page. I had a client lost a $2 million contract because their executive, they got everything ready, sent it up to the executive. The executive signed the final page. They didn't sign the other pages that were part of the requirement. And they wanted every single page signed. And I called on behalf of that client. They would not make any exceptions. And they were the best proposal. There's no doubt. So make sure you're following all the rules, okay, in that, okay, and the qualification experience. Listen, the second question I always get is, Mark, I'll come to this. I don't have any experience just yet. My company is new. Everybody starts new. They understand that. Don't worry about it. Okay. You understand why you're doing what you're doing first. Get your executive summary in place. Then you're qualified. Otherwise, you wouldn't have started your company. You wouldn't have went in and you wouldn't even be responding to the RFP. You're qualified. It's already, the statement of work's already spoke to you. You didn't even got this far because you could do the work, and you can do the work. Just sell yourself the right way. Be prepared to sell yourself. I think I have another quote in here about affirmation. I don't have it in this one. I use that slide when I'm talking about capability because you're the only one who can tell the others that your capabilities and how you can meet those and don't expect somebody else to sing your song for you. It doesn't happen. Okay, so go ahead and practice writing. Actually do multiple types of qualifications and experience the summaries. If I'm going after a compensation classification study, I talk about that. I also do staffing analysis for companies. My background before I started GovDirections is in organizational management theory. And so whenever I work contractually with governments, I work in those fields. And so I have 3 or 4 different specialties. I help for another example, indirect cost allocation calculations. I do those for large organizations. And so I would have 3 or 4 different sets of qualifications experience, just like you might go out and apply for a job the same way. You change it around a little bit, have that ready to go and practice on that and speak kindly of yourself. Okay. Speak well of yourself. No one else is going to affirm you like, okay. So have that ready to go. And then your cost breakdown, they're going to, let me get back to qualification experience. Just because they say they need 10 years experience doesn't mean you should also walk away from something. Don't ever do that. It's not that the reason why is not everybody responds has 10 years experience. And so if they only get individuals just like you, or you only have 1 or 2 years in this business, that's perfectly okay. And they'll make some exceptions. They always do. So just know that just because think of it as preferred. Okay. And specifically nowadays, governments don't get that, everything they want anymore. The labor market's tight. There's not enough companies. There's no one's responding. So you're just because you don't meet exactly what they're looking for, it's okay. Okay. Cost breakdown. They're going to tell you how they want to break down a cost. You should practice this as well. It could be multiple indicators on how you actually go in there and do your costs. A lot of times it's actually separate. Okay. And just understand but they're going to tell you how to do that. And it's going to be very common in your industry. Cost is difficult. I do a class specifically on performance research and how to actually go back in and to kind of get into the marketplace, but you should have a couple of price items researched in your company before you actually start bidding. It's just a wise policy. I saw just the other day, there were some 25 responses to a vial contract, and somebody was at 125,000 for the contract. Somebody was at 12,500, the exact same contract. how do you have that such a wide disparity? Because no, those ones at the top, and the ones at the bottom, they didn't really go back and do their homework. And not only that, but the one who won that left over $9,000 on the table. That may not seem like a lot in this particular contract, is a lot, because the second one was $9,000 more. And this was one that was an invitation to bid specifically based on price. And so that company just really made a huge error, even though they won the contract, because they probably gave it away at cost or even below cost in order to get the business. Governments don't want you to do that. Usually, sometimes they even frown on it and they don't choose you because you're the cost. Even one I use as an example of failure when I teach a class about government, how it works. In that one, I bid 44,500 on the project. Another one bid 26,000 on the project, and I still was at the higher rank than that one. Okay, and it's because I knew kind of how to do this, and I was at about the 75th percentile, and that's kind of where you really want to be at usually when you're bidding and you know what you're doing and you got some experience. But if you're very new, then you may need to be at the 20th percentile. So these are kind of things that you kind of have to work through when you're on, and understand that we do price research here for you. If you need that, just reach out to me. Evaluation criteria. The best thing about an RFP in government is they're going to tell you how they're going to evaluate them. Okay, that's the matrix. Okay, the first thing that my students do when they come to classes, Mr. Knowles, how are you going to give me what do I have to do to get an A? Okay, I'm like, just sit back and you see. Okay, you're here, you're in graduate school. Don't worry about it. Okay, so they're like, I need to see that matrix, and they're going to do exactly what it's on that matrix, and focus in on that, and they're not going to learn. And I'm about learning. Okay, but here in government, it really is. They're telling you how they're going to grade you. Take the opportunity to grade yourself using that matrix. Okay. And so I already skipped ahead and showed you, you're the one that I wanted to find. That if you didn't do nothing all day today, hear that song in your head. It's go play it on your speaker. It's Saturday morning here. I got some classical music. Maybe I'll change it over to that song in just a minute playing, but it's a great song by Coldplay. But they should always speak to you and sing to you. And work always expands. Okay. And when you go through each of these RFPs, the first thing you're going to do is you want to read the entire proposal. You want to make sure that statement of work speaks to you. Okay. And if it does, then read the entire proposal. Don't just leave it out there, because it could be parts of it that you can't meet. When I tag it in my RFP delivery site, it's pinpointed to my location. I'd make sure it's a good location for myself. And then I tag it in my save folders. And then I can always go back to it and pull it when I need to. But it's there. But I read the entire proposal. Ones that I want to really respond to, I may even print out, but don't print out all of them, because they can be hundreds of pages long sometimes. And after you get past the first 10 pages, it's going to be mostly pro forma type stuff that they have to do contractually. Okay. And so, you'll get used to that, seeing that kind of information, and you'll know which parts to actually print out. But read it. Okay. Understand it. Make sure it's the right thing. Pay attention to the areas we just discussed. These here. Okay. Pay attention to them. Write down some notes, jot some notes, start looking for your indicators of success that you've already defined. And for example, when I bid, I wanted to be about 250 employees in that range, hire a little bit lower. I wanted to be, really in the western states. I like to work in South Dakota, North Dakota, even though I live in Georgia, because I like to get out there and go a little fly fishing. And so sometimes I do that, and I tie my business and personal relation at this point in my life. Now, there was a point in my life I was just going everywhere, but now I want to be a little bit slower pace, and I want to know where I'm going. And so these are the things that I look for. Okay, and you're going to have your own 15 or so indicators. Then set it aside. Talk to your colleagues. In my case, I'm going to talk to my wife. Say, hey, you want to go for a project maybe out in Montana, and then I can work out there for a few days and do a little sightseeing and so forth. And if it's a good fit, and so you might be going in there looking for specifically for profit, or there's something that your colleagues and you are looking for. Okay, make sure it's a good fit. Okay, you don't want to go after things that are not a good fit. Sometimes this it requires maybe going on their websites and looking at the commission meetings and the city council meetings and county commission, seeing if people are getting along, making sure there's not a lot of 5-4 votes, that people aren't fighting, because they're all videotaped now. I don't want to work in a community that's negative, it's not worth it. It just takes away your fun of life and the support. So these are the things you want to make sure of when you're looking for a good fit. Don't just take business to take business. And then complete the proposal. Set down and try to do that in one setting. You should have your everything ready to go in order to pull it in there, lay it out, frame it, and then take a look at it, and then send it off. Okay, at the appropriate time. Don't send it off too early. Don't send it off late, because they're not going to accept it. Don't wait to the last minute either. You don't want to get caught up in all the new technology and your proposal just doesn't make it up or it gets lost in the process or you don't connect to the right place. You see how many people have problems connecting to just a Zoom call. It's, can you imagine the complexity of actually bidding online now? Or responding online. There are issues there. So you want to make sure that happens. I usually try to get there a day early. And that's it. Okay. I don't try to get there 3 or 4 days early. There's too much opportunity for mischief, and I don't want to have that happen. And as I said, the only source of knowledge is experience, and you really got to get in there and see these things and start finding them. So the first step in working with GovDirections is finding. Okay, and you can do that in a couple different ways. Okay, add your RFP delivery account. Always, when you do log in, you can click on our logo or the word home. It always takes you to your dashboard. Okay, and this is the place for you to come and work and use tools that are designed specifically for you. Just to note, you should also make sure you are receiving your daily alert. Sometimes it ends up in your spam filter where you all get so many emails. This is one you want to get, but in case you don't want to go there, you can actually log in and click and see your daily alert here online. Okay, you can at any time you'll see the batches for the previous 24-hour period. Okay, based on what I'm looking for. Okay, and so I'm looking for human resource, typically education, training, but you set your settings. You can always go here, manager, you remember dashboard, click on the logo, you go home, but your settings drive that. And this is the first step in pinpointing, making sure you cast a wide net. Okay. And when you do that, you choose as many categories that you want. Don't overwhelm yourself, but you'll start seeing which ones you're really looking for. Always look for human resource type contracts. So they're management studies and consulting human resources is something that I look for. Okay. And you can kind of drill through the ones that you want to respond to. Okay. Recruitment, staffing, professional services, here's the human resources. There we go. So I put it back on there and then I save it and then update it. And from that point forward, my alert's going to just tell me those. Okay. If I want to geographically limit my location, I can, by default it's check all. And then you can go back in and let's just say I'm wanting to work really in South Dakota, in North Dakota. Yeah, people think I'm crazy, but that's some of the best places in the world. If you ever get a chance to get up there to the Badlands and to the open spaces there, take it. It's you'll never regret it. I've been to every state now in the US and every state capital. Just the things that you do in life. I'm sort of weird about that. Your daily alerts here, okay, and you can always turn it on and off. And your filters now here as well. And so you can store those once you set them at the main page. I'll show you how to do that. Always change your password. Remember home. And the way you set your filters, and this is another powerful tool we've added for our members, but you can come in here and let's just say I'm really interested in human resource activities in those states, but I'm gonna leave it blank here for all of them right now, or even a particular NAICS code. Type that in, save the filter, and at that point in time, it applies the filter so you can see what matches you get. But it's also, and not only that, it's powerful. The map tool shows you location they're at. Okay, so I can then quickly see there's a wage study up there, and let's see what is in that. Maybe I missed this. And it's upcoming. Upcoming means that this is a bid that's coming, not out yet. And we know the reason we know it's coming because of some reason. That is, they budgeted for it. They talked about it in an agenda of a public meeting. Let's go see where we learned about that. External link takes you to that original source. Oh, it's in the agenda, and they're going to do a 2023 wage study. So I can get in there and practice more traditional business development. The bid's not out yet. The RFP is not out yet. So I want to make sure I do that. Sometimes even when I drill into the government, I'm able to go in there and see what they're doing, how much they plan to spend. There's all kinds of things there for me. Make sure you take every opportunity you get when you're pursuing the actual item that you want to go out there and look for. Okay. But that's a real powerful tool. Upcoming is in our business intelligence area. And then maybe over there, there's another one in Minnesota. So that's a different way to search those and use that filter. Otherwise, I might want to go, as I said earlier, to my account and look at my filters, go back in my settings and see those filters. There's that one I just set, apply it, and it's going to show me the same results. In addition, you can click that My Filters from the very front page. Just to quickly, we're making it easier and easier for you to always know where your bids are at. Okay, and so you just click right there, My Filters, and it'll show you those same links there. Apply it, and I might have multiple filters. I'm looking different projects. I might be looking for compensation studies, might be looking for, custodial services and so forth. Okay. And so I'm able to go in here and take a look at those. I saw one earlier. There's one in North Carolina. I may have mentioned that one earlier because there's one in Virginia that I saw. And then when I clicked on it, here it is. It's for a classification compensation study. We give you some basic information. Here's where it's located. Here's the date it's due. I got enough time to respond to it. There's a RFP number. Here's who I need to contact. Sometimes it's specific. Other times it's generic. Only talk to the individual they tell you that you can talk to. This is in Surrey County, but it's published at the state site. Okay. Sometimes it's located in multiple locations. We monitor over 140,000 different locations to gain our information for you. And so we really scour the web using both technology, artificial intelligence, as well as human beings. We have our research staff has about 25 individuals any given time working on your behalf to really allow you to come in there and search. You can do everything we do. You just got to spend a lot of money to do it, or you can join our service and we do that for you. And so when you get in here and you see that, the first thing you want to do is you want to save it. Okay, save it over here. This is your personal folder. And you also may want to go ahead and just save it as a PDF and download it. Okay, and I could go ahead and do that, put it in my PDF folder. And that way I can ship it off to a friend if I need to, but you can also share it when you have it saved in your capture folder. So I've captured it, but I want to go out there and look at it. And so, and I do that sometimes when I'm laying in bed and I go in and I click on it and save it. And then maybe when I first get up, my wife hates that because the light shines, but I'm looking at it and then I'll go out in my office and then I will print it out and start working on it. And the other thing, you might want to do even later in the evening, you want to just check, go in and run that filter, and you can see before your alert comes out. So it's instant information. There's millions. We have over 5 million records, and it calls through all of them, gets to you. But there's any given time, there's about 5,000 new ones coming in every day. So if you're catching it, before you hit the hay, then you really are getting an early lead time. But here we have the bid. Takes me to the original source. This is the Virginia site. Sometimes you have to register, or even third-party registrations. I don't really understand why the governments use that. And it's a waning practice of using third-party providers. Sometimes they try to get you and make you think you got to pay. All of them are free. If you do have to register, just make sure you choose the free option. It doesn't make any sense for you just to pay multiple places to get the same information that's already free anywhere. So the primary focus is pinpointing. Okay, make sure you get that. When you click on these, then you're able to download. And this one here, I think I downloaded it, and I saw that bid. Let me go see. Let's see here. Oh, I have to switch screens because it's a PDF. Oh my goodness, there he is. Oh, there it is. Okay, so here we go. Surrey County. And so here is an RFP, experiential learning. Let's take a look at our real one. And we want them to work the way we teach you that you did work, but not always don't. So make sure you're aware of that and you have to look through. But this one here kind of seems like it fits the form. They give you that cover letter, and this is going to give you some basic information. Go ahead and, if I'm going to be interested in this one, which I am, then I'm going to tag that and put it on my calendar. Okay. And tools every day are coming up where it just allows you to do that automatically. And people are innovative and giving you shortcuts. I'm also going to, maybe go out and find out where Surrey County's at. I already looked on the RFP map because I'm going to have to go on location. There's no doubt about it. Okay. And so I'm going to make sure it's not hard to get to, things like that. These are some indicators that I don't want to be, more than an hour away from a big airport. And because I don't want to have to drive anymore. I used to drive sometimes 12 hours, 14 hours a day to get to places that are elsewhere. I'm kind of out of that stage. I don't want to do that. So I don't go after those contracts. And so there's reasons. Okay. These are indicators that you're using. That's why I tell you those. I'm just giving you some descriptive. So it's not always pricing, things like that. It's other parts of your life that you want to make sure that you're watching for. Who's the primary contact? I might even go Google that and maybe look them up on LinkedIn. Okay. Things like that. Most of these are professionals. How to get that email, who to email. I'm only going to deal with that individual. Okay. In this process, I'm going to start noticing forms, places they want me to fill in. So don't forget those, mark those. Here's that scope of work, the purpose. Okay. Purpose of this request. It should be 2 to 3 sentences. This one is, it's very clear. They want a classification comp for this county. It's 165. It's a little bit below my average, but that's perfect though. It's easier work. So this is what I'm definitely an indicator that I'm a jump on. Okay. The county's goal, and it should meet mine. I'm not an LFSA expert. Ugh. I might have to bring in a team member to do that. Okay. Somebody that I know can do So I'm gonna jot that note down. And because you can do that. Okay. You're not always going to have all the things they need, but you can build teams and build ways to do that. Okay. And make sure you meet them and meet their guidelines. Most of us have 1099 individuals in business, small business anyway. It's not a big deal, folks. Just do that. You don't have to go out and hire a bunch of employees to respond to it. Just use all contract work. It makes a lot of sense. That's how the world works these days. And the main goal to help them with the competitive pay. And that's what I do for a living. The background, they're telling me some other indicators. That's why they're telling me the background, where they're at, where they're located, how many total employees is even smaller than they said. They say full-time or part-time, but half of them are part-time. Okay. It's almost equal. That's an indicator that I watch for. And I'm going through it. The last time they did a study, it was fairly recent. So why are they coming back out? That's a good question. In my market, usually don't do that, but it maybe every 10, 14 years. So they've got a problem potentially. I might want to go do my research. 2018 is going to be there. I'm going to look at what they've already done. How much they paid last time is a good indicator. And that's going to help me understand how I'm going to price things like that. Okay. And the statement of need, this is basically the specs. Okay. The deliverables. Why they're doing this. It's kind of a combination. And when they tell me this is what they're working on, A, B, C, D, I'm going to start framing my thought process and how I'm going to respond to them in the same manner. Okay. So my answers to them are going to be for A, it's going to be for B, it's going to be for C, it's going to be for D, in that order. Okay. I'm seeing somebody's dropping in some RFPs, things like that in the box. That's a great tool to help me. So thank you for doing that. I'm going to look at those for you. Review the current pay practice and so forth. They're telling me what they want to do, how they want to do it. And my response is going to be built in that same way. And most likely I'm going to have a paragraph or two already written in my Google Drive that discusses these. Because when you do one of these, you actually, or most of them have the same thing. Okay. In your industry, you'll have that. You'll understand it. They're going to tell me how to prepare it. They want the qualification experience up front. Okay. Generally, sometimes that's in the latter part. They also want to, that's even before in that part, in the qualification experience, they want specific ways that you do that. So I'm going to do it here, A, B, C, D. Okay. I'm going to give them my experience. I'm going to build it back to them the same way. And not only that, because this is a little bit different than what I normally see, I'm going to go ahead and store that in a Google Drive this way. Okay. And then I'll have another reference. It's going to be a different type that I respond back to. My references, they want specific type of references. Get your references ready to go. And we teach you how to do that. Okay. They want the approach methodology. Have that written up for your company. You spend a day to really do that. Review it, understand it. Make sure you're able to sell your company. Okay. Your costs, they want the cost there, how it's going to be determined. Other requirements. A lot of times they have other things like, I need you to sign an E-Verify, something like that. Okay. So make sure you always have those. Those also seem to be common, typically common by state. And so you want your Google Drive oftentimes drip. If you're working outside of multiple states, have some state folders within that to help you. Okay. And then they're telling me how they're going to evaluate it. Okay. They want specialized experience. They want past record. They want completeness of the proposal. And then they want a demonstration of my knowledge. Oh, wait, they didn't even talk about cost there, do they? They're not even looking at cost. You don't focus so much on cost, people. Focus in on getting your other parts. You're competing based on your experience. You're competing based on your past record. You're competing based on your ability to follow instructions. You're competing on your demonstration of knowledge. That's important that you get that you practice and you really hire. You want to invest in something, invest in a technical writer to help you do that the first time. You don't have to do them for every time, but your first one needs to be good. Okay. And you need to have them, because if you can't sell yourself, then you can, in this business, you can just give up because it's not going to be about going in there grabbing it on cost. Okay. And just so you know that. Okay. And so also the award, they're going to tell you how they're going to give you the award. Okay. Here's that contract. Everything else is the contract. And they're going to give you the contract here. Okay. That's the rest of it. That's it. It's not anything complicated. So there you have that sample. Let's see here. I've got one somebody just gave me. This in here is Bay Area Quality Management District. This is RFP. Give me an RFP number. Always watch for those numbers. And whenever you refer back to them, you need to use those. I'm writing one for the Small Business Administration right now, and that we're proposing on something for them. And that's front and center. I also place it on every single page at the top when I'm doing that, just as a way for a reference. Okay. These are some things we teach you in the RFP writing class. In a summary, they give me that summary. And so they're basically looking for on this one, design a refreshed logo. So one sentence, they told you what they wanted. Good. And you respond, you got to use the RFP, you got to have it back by a particular time. They're telling you everything you need to know. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to turn mute on for this one. I need that background clear. Thank you. I'm not trying to be rude. And so you have there, they tell you a little bit about the air district itself and what they're doing. Okay. And so always give you a background, the scope of work. Here is more of you saw that there's two parts of this. They give you a summary here, and that's really what I call the SOW. But here you have the more detailed scope of work. Okay. And this almost becomes your deliverables as well. So it's a combination. So you understand that going into it. And you should recognize that and you should understand it whenever you're going through. Generally, what they're looking for, this is well laid out. I think this is a good proposal. Whoever wrote this did a good job. And you got to tell them and you got to respond to them in a certain way. Okay. And you got to watch. They're telling you got to watch for addendums because you can submit questions. I'm not necessarily a big fan of submitting questions. I'll wait and see what everybody else asks. They should go ahead and they should have told you everything they wanted in this. I'm not going to add to it if I don't have to. Okay. But I'd like to watch what everybody else writes. Okay. If they're going to have some addendums, but otherwise you're going to end up and you're going to they use one of these third-party software services. You want to get used to it. As soon as you register in there, they're going to call you and suggest you got to pay thousands of dollars. You don't have to. Okay. Everything's free. Okay. But they want you registered so that if there's an addendum, the government's using these softwares as a services as well. And it's given to them free and hopes to take your money elsewhere. So just be aware of that going into it. And I don't like to say everybody has ideas. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's just a different way of doing things. Okay. And you can go in there and you can see those. They're going to have interviews. So your main goal is to get to the interview. So you got to do everything else first. We get to the interview and then you can make any changes. You can suggest different ways of doing things. You can be creative at that point. You're in the door. Okay. You will have your capability statement ready to go. And when you go in that room to interview, you're going to place that capability statement in front of each one of those users. You don't want them to get the proposal that they're flipping through the whole time. And then you don't have their attention. You want to sell yourself for your capability statement. Use it as a placeholder. Put it in front of them. Make it shine. Okay. It really does. I do that everything. It always works. That's a good tool. And they're looking at that instead. And you see the contents. Okay. This is a simple one. They've held your hand. It's not difficult to respond to. Okay. Give you the dates. This one here is 10 pages, nothing extraordinary. You could do this in an afternoon, most likely. It looks like it's a lot. If you're ready to go, then it's something that you can do. So that's where we are today. Anybody have any questions? I saw some questions in the chatting box. Thanks, Xavier, for sharing. Seeing some comments. We all reach back to you if you have some questions about your registration and SAM. I can walk you through that. People stumble all the time. You should do that and have that accomplished within a couple of hours. That's the only registration. I have a class on registrations you can come to. That's the only one you really have to have in place. Others allow you to do it as you're registering, but you need to get that ready. Even though your likelihood of winning a federal government contract is probably not great when you first start out. It's not that you can't do it. It's just that it's a big marketplace. Start with local and state. This one here that has been shared with you, that's a perfect one to go after if you're newer in the marketplace. Somebody has a question about technical procurement. You can unmute yourself if you'd like and ask me a question, Mary. It's up to you, or you can ask in the chat box.
Okay, sure. Hi, good morning, Mark. My name's Mary.
Good morning. Before we do that, I'm going ahead and stop the recording. If you're on YouTube, I appreciate your time, but I'd like to engage with those here. Thank you and have a great afternoon on YouTube. Go ahead, Mary.
Okay, thank you. Hi, Mark. Good morning. Hey, everybody. My name is Mary, and I'm doing my first RFPs here, and I'm in the technical IT procurement data science domain. And so I am just a little bit nervous about it because I want to do things correctly. I'm quite confident in my technical capabilities because that's my background for 15 years, but I'm just wondering if you could chat or talk on for a minute about how, is there any differences between what you've just discussed, which is more like organizational HR, people management? Is there any differences between doing that and a technical one where you've got to be real particular about tech specs, like acquiring computers or laptops or hard drives for the military or things like this? That's the sort of domain I'm getting into. So I know they have some specific cost structures and things like that.
Sure.
Do you know anything about this?
Your field, and what you're going to want to do is you're going to take three or four RFPs and look at them and lay them out against each other. You should start seeing the technical specs be somewhat similar. In your technical part, you need to be able to explain that to the individuals who most likely is going to be a technical individual reviewing it, and so you got to practice on that. The process and the format of proposal is going to be very similar in every industry, okay? Because that's going to be the procurement officer guiding that, okay? In their specs, in the technical specs, and in your response, if they want you to give that technical, they will probably limit you. And they said they want you to explain this in a 10-page summary or a 5-page. And this could be a very complicated engineering, very complicated technology. And most of that is really not required until you get to the second stage. So you give it some basics and then you get into the door, and then you sit with them. In technology, most times it's in an agile environment. And so you're going through that with them, okay? You're giving them the overview and the expectations. And almost always in your field, you're going to see some sort of pre-proposal conference where they go into detail with that, okay? But as a process, it's going to be the same format of proposals that you'll see, okay? So it should, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does.
If you need, what I would be glad to do, you can, any of you, you can go here to, since you came to this class, at RFP delivery, just a quick, there's other ways you can request technical discussion. You can book me, Mark, okay? I do have where I consult specifically, but you can actually just book the free one to start off with, and I'll walk through one of them with you, something specific to you, okay? And we'll talk about that. And I can even review it for you if you need me to, before you send it off.
Yeah,
I'm not going to understand the technical part, and I'm going to understand if you have answered it in the way they need you to answer it.
Okay, yeah, I'll be setting something up with that. I've already booked the appointment above. I've chatted once with Connor to kind of understand the site here, and I've pulled down several different technical RFPs to kind of get a feel for, here's some for hardware, here's some for software. I'm looking at the different ones that might fit for me. And so now I feel ready to kind of move forward. So I'll go ahead and book one with you.
Yeah, you and I do that. Others demonstrate the site as a whole. I can talk to you about the logistics of procurement. Okay, I've got that background, so
okay,
I'll be glad to do that with you. Okay, and it's not going to be as complicated as you think.
Okay,
you'll have the skills to do it if you're in the business. Okay.
Okay.
But it's not going to be easy either. So if it's supposed to be hard, that's why you're going to be one of the few that respond to those.
Yeah.
But I was sat in with it the other day. I think it was in Colorado. It was a very technical IT related project that I was listening to for a client, and they went into the details and they told the interested parties exactly what they would need to do.
Okay.
Somebody's asked me about cage numbers. Cage numbers are used for the Department of Defense. And as you're going through your SAM application, you're asked that question if you intend to work with the DoD. And if you are, then you have to have a cage number. And the cage number is assigned by them. They will assign that. And it's basically a number that tells everyone in the Defense Department specific things about you, what industry you're in, what congressional district you're in. And you can look that up. Just Google cage number. You don't have to pay anybody for that, but you should. When you click through there, DoD will set you up. The Defense Department of Defense is the world's largest buyer, and they're also the gold standard in procurement. They do it right, and you need that. You only need it for the federal government and Department of Defense. Though, do we know anyone who can help? Yeah, we do. That's what we do. So, Gov Advice in your member homepage, and somebody else has asked about the booking link. When you go into your member home, your dashboard at RFP, and we give you this in a number of different locations, including emails that come from us. But Gov Advice is our technical micro consulting platform. You can book an appointment there. You can also go in and just request a demo here, and on that link, you can as well book sessions, minor consulting. Somebody's asked privately about consulting. There are different levels of that. Most of you just need one-offs and you have questions. And so we built that way. So we don't expect you to hang on to you forever. And we understand that. So that's just part of, it's kind of like the Uber driver carrying you to somewhere. Okay. It's okay. But Gov Advice we know there's specific services you need. One of those is the capability statement, and the other is transferring that to your website. Governments will look at your capability statement, and it's written in a specific way. You're told how to do that by the federal government. If you research that, they tell you what you need. We also have a class where we teach you how to do that. You can sign up for in Gov School. You see those classes, but there's specific parts of it: your executive summary, differentiators, your competencies, your certifications, and your NAICS codes, things like that. NAICS codes are used by the federal government. Okay, North American Industry Classification System, only used there primarily for the set-aside system. So you'll come to learn these things. You can take that mini boot camp with me. It's about 2 hours, and I'll go through a lot of that. But branding yourself, preparing your branding in the right way, making it interactive as possible, all within one page is critical. And we have people. It typically runs you around $500. We can get you a fee of about $400 to do that. So you can purchase that now, or you can book it. You can book an appointment to discuss it. You can do this yourself though. Okay, we teach you how to do it yourself, but we also have people available to help you with that. Price research, another part, consulting here, and then writing RFP responses. Actually preparing a template for you. We have individuals technically able to do that for you. Okay, and it's not a huge fee. It's an investment for you, and you'll find that to be the case. And we do that routinely. I just finished somebody's this morning. I reviewed it I always review every one of them to go back. And there's a carousel that we have linked through that you can see here. We've prepared hundreds of them. I'll show some of the best of them. Okay. Anyone else, any questions? Try to answer all your questions today. Well, I'll tell you what, folks, 10 o'clock now, you stay with me for a whole hour. And somebody's asked me a question about LLCs. I'm not an attorney, so our tax expert. That's really a tax question for you. I couldn't answer that question. You do need to seek the answer that for elsewhere. If I would tell you what I would probably do, I would probably have a separate LLC just for government work. I do that. Okay. That's how it's set up. And protect, and that's just a legal protection method and tax payment reason. Okay, so you should seek the advice of your accountant and your tax individual as well as your lawyers. Okay, but I don't think governments care. I do both LLC work and I do sole proprietor work under my own individual name. Okay, but thanks again, and everybody have a great Saturday.